Hi, this is Paula from Moxie Mojo, and welcome to part 2 of my guest design team for Susan Taylor Brown with her Etsy shop Poppiness. Now in part 1 I introduced the kits I am planning on using and gave you my initial thoughts about how they printed out. In part 2 I'm actually going to do something with Susan's awesome printables. Now the kit I'm using is her Around the World Printables. It's a 10 vintage map set with or in a digital download format. And what I've done is I've pulled out some templates that I have been collecting, and I've just copied from wherever I found them onto some black cardstock, drawn around them in a white pencil and then trim them out, put a name on them. And I'm going to be using these templates to first of all measure against the pages that I've printed, so I can see, well, what size envelope or pocket can I make, and then actually on the back of them I will trace around them and then cut them out. Now this is an ideal way of working out how to maximize the use of the printables that you have got, or even just your scrapbook pages or other pages that you've got. Because we can get envelopes in a whole heap of different sizes, sometimes it's difficult to know what will and won't fit. So having a template that you can use and measure up against the image, particularly where it is in a different size, allows you to say, well, what's the best way around to put that? Is the page going to fit in the junk journal or album or whatever I'm making? Is it going to fit on the scrapbook page, for instance? And particularly where you're using something like these maps, which, like when you're doing any sewing, have essentially a nap or one direction that they can go, because there's writing on them and the image has a meaning, then you want to make sure that when you do use them, they are going the right way round. And with these, most of the maps, I think except for one, are all in that landscape format. So I want to make sure that when I put them into the junk journal, they are going to be in a or facing the way that you can read them. Now this page here is the smallest of the ones after I trimmed off the border. So I'm looking at another template here, and this is a coin pocket. And the other thing that using a template is ideal for is where you've got part of an image that you want to make sure you are focusing on, you can use the template to line up what part of the printable is going to be where. With this one, I'm going to use the coin envelope on one side, but then on the bit that's left over, I am going to turn that just into like a mini page that can tuck into a tuck spot or pocket as an extra, because the page that's there is just too awesome to sort of waste, and because I've used up my printer ink, I want to make sure that I am getting the most out of what I'm doing. So because of the issue with nap, or direction you might want to say, I am being very careful with how I line up my template so that I know which way around it's going to be. I have transferred the template from on the front in the direction that I want and just kind of put it behind and flipped it over. And I'm now going to just quickly trace around the outside and then trim it up. And you'll see me, I've sped this up a wee bit. I think in the trimming bit, so that we can see how, because you don't need to see me cutting out an envelope. Everyone knows how to cut out an envelope. So I'm just showing you very quickly going around the outside of the template. Now one thing I did do is I tried to line up with as many of the straight edges as possible, because that means A, less cutting, and B, also helps to make sure that the template is on the page a lot straighter than what it might otherwise be. So now we've sped it up a wee bit just to get through the boring cutting bit, because we all know how to cut paper with scissors. And having done that, I am keeping any of the larger pieces. You'll see me sort of put them aside maybe, or I might have trimmed that out. And then I'm going to come back in, because you want to use as many of those pieces as you can. And what I'm doing now is, yes, I could use my school board, but I'm just going to finger press everything into place, eyeball it, use my bone folder to make sure I've got a nice crisp edge, and then glue everything together. I'm going to ink all the edges, and that's actually going to be in part 3 of the video, but at this stage I'm just putting them all together, folding all the sides and the tops, top and bottom, and working out, well, how's it all going to fit together. Then I'm going to look at which do I want to have the side tabs over the bottom bit, or am I going to have the bottom bit over the top. It all comes down to individual choice. What do you want? Experiment, have a look, try it both ways, and then glue down whichever you prefer. As long as the envelope is closed and you've got the side sealed so that whatever you put in there isn't going to fall out, then that's the main thing. And so that's what I'm just doing now, is which way round do I prefer it. And I think in the end I decided that I like the sides being on top, and so that's the way I've done it. And then you'll see there that having made or folded up the envelope, when I actually put it in, the image itself is now going to be up the right way when I put the envelope in the journal that way round. So that is ideal, almost makes like a page extension, and then I can clip it in place with a paper clip or something to that effect. But for now I'm just going to glue the sides in. I am just going to use glue stick. You can use a liquid glue if you want, but whatever you do, the one thing to be careful of, and this is a trap for young players, is make sure that you only glue as high as the back that you're going to be sticking onto, so you don't want to stick the sides down to the inside of the envelope, because that will just reduce the amount or the width of what you can actually put in the envelope. So you heard it here first if you haven't already worked that out. So just glue as much as is going to be attached to that back bit. You don't want to glue the top all the way down, because otherwise your opening may go from sort of 6 inches down to maybe 4 inches. Just kind of guessing there. And then put it aside to dry, and repeat as required. So I think in the end I made 4 of the large envelopes, because my original plan was to have 4 signatures. When you get to see the finished album, because I'm doing this voiceover after I've finished the album, or the junk journal I should say, you will see that I actually ended up turning it into 8 signatures, because each signature was just going to be too big using only 4. Now here I am just speeding through a different envelope. The only thing that's different is the style and size, but essentially everything else is the same. You draw around the template, trim it out, fold over the edges and work out which one you want to have where, and then glue it all together. The only extra thing I had to do on here was just trim a little bit extra off those top and bottom edges, because I'd cut it straight and it needed to be on just a little bit more of an angle so it wasn't going to catch. And again, make sure you check that the glue isn't going to hold the envelope closed. And here I am with that extra bit that was left from that page, the second page, just adhering it down onto some scrap cardboard that I've got. It's like the back of a paper pack. Just trimming that down to size, and then on the back I'm going to put a vintage book page. Now I don't mind that the text is quite a bit smaller than the page, so I just put that on and I left it to dry before I trimmed around the rest of the edge of that back vintage page, just so that I wasn't going to pull it up. So make sure you let things like that dry and then trim. Here I'm cutting out another different sized envelope. This is a small one, and this is me just pointing out some of those extra pieces. There are little images that you will want to keep and use. Like for instance, one of them there had a very nice compass face on that little wee scrap, which I cut out and then adhered as a embellishment onto the journal, into the junk journal. I just put that little wee glue bottle in there to keep the envelope up, because it had a tendency to go like fall back down, and I didn't want the envelope to seal closed, because then I couldn't put anything in it. Now the other half of this, I am cutting out some triangular pockets. Now these have got tabs on the side, so I could have left some of the white border on the page and then just folded that over, but because I'd already trimmed the maps down, I just used the map page and folded that behind. Don't need to stick anything down on these until you actually put it into your junk journal. And I think I made, so this is sort of everything that I made. I made 2 small envelopes, 2 coin envelopes, 2 small pockets, triangular pockets, 2 large triangular pockets, 4 envelopes. Most of that was made off camera, because once you've seen one, you've seen them all. And here I am just tearing off that edge of the book page and I made 2 of those pages. And what I'm doing is I'm pulling up from the book page, so that's essentially, rather than using a ruler or scissors, I'm tearing along the edge of the cardboard that I put in between the map and the book page, just so that it gives it a slightly distressed edge, but is the right size for the map page that I've got there. I didn't measure them, I just used them exactly as they were, rather than trimming them down so they were straight. So we're going to have a look in part 3 about how I actually put some ink on them, just to emphasize them. So I'll see you all again there.